Dr. Alani Adebayo moved with a distinct, rhythmic gait through the pristine surgical corridor, the carbon fiber prosthetic beneath her scrubs emitting a soft click against the polished linoleum. She could hear the hushed chatter of two junior residents just behind her, their words sharp enough to cut through the sterile air. She had trained herself to tune it out. The blare of the trauma alert over the hospital's intercom, however, was impossible to ignore. Moments later, the emergency bay doors flew open, and a team of paramedics wheeled in a man whose chest was a ruin of shattered bone. Alani surged forward, her limp forgotten, her voice a clear, commanding instrument, orchestrating the chaos into a symphony that would either save a life or confirm every doubt whispered about her. The man's heart gave out twice before they even reached the operating theater. The patient's name was Michael Corrigan, a 45-year-old from a construction site mishap. His chart read flail chest and cardiac tamponade. His heart was quite literally suffocating. From the observation gallery above, she could feel the stare of Dr. Robert Sterling, the chief of surgery. He had made his views plain just last week. A surgeon with an unsteady stance could not have a steady hand. Alani disproved his theory in 47 minutes flat. The procedure she employed wasn't standard civilian practice. It was a desperate, brilliant maneuver her hands remembered from a past life. After Michael's vitals stabilized, the operating team looked at her not with the admiration she'd earned, but with a stark, unsettling confusion. The anesthesiologist finally broke the silence, asking where she had learned such a technique. She offered no reply, just as she never did. The question, however, lingered in their eyes. The same one that shadowed her every shift. It wasn't until she was closing that she saw the military-issue bracelet on Michael's wrist. As a nurse repositioned him for transport to recovery, it slipped off. Alani caught it, the cool weight of the metal in her palm sending a chill through her. For 3 years, she had meticulously built a wall separating her present from her past. That simple bracelet was the first crack in its foundation. The following morning, Dr. Sterling summoned her to his office. She knew the script by heart, having played this scene at 2 previous hospitals. "Your methods are unconventional, Dr. Adebayo," he began, settling into his opulent leather chair. "Some might even call them reckless." She stood silently, her weight resting on her left leg, and waited. "Michael Corrigan is stable, but your approach has raised concerns. The board is reviewing your surgical privileges." She should have mounted a defense. Instead, her mind drifted to the last time her skills were questioned. It was in a field hospital in Syria, 2017, with mortar shells rocking the ground. She had saved 7 soldiers that night with techniques that would have horrified any civilian medical board. It was also the night she lost her leg and her sense of self. "I understand, Dr. Sterling," she said. His eyes narrowed. "Do you? Because from my perspective, you're a liability." That limp, "It's more than physical, doctor. It's a symbol. Patients need to see confidence, strength, not—" He gestured vaguely toward her leg, the unspoken words hanging in the air. She left his office with her career in limbo and her dignity scattered on his expensive Persian rug. In the corridor, a pair of nurses fell silent as she approached, but she caught the end of their conversation. "Why, shouldn't be allowed to operate." She kept walking, the prosthetic clicking out a rhythm, a countdown to an unknown conclusion. She was unaware that Michael Corrigan had woken up, asking pointed questions about the black surgeon who had saved him. Her next shift began with the ER descending into controlled pandemonium. A multi-car pileup had sent a flood of patients through the doors. As Alani moved through the fray, adrenaline masking her limp, she spotted him. The man on Gurney 5 wasn't breathing correctly. His respirations were shallow and dangerously fast. The resident assigned to him was glancing at his phone. "Gurney 5?" she called out, her voice cutting through the noise. "Now." The young doctor looked up, annoyed. "He's stable, minor cuts and bruises." "He's bleeding internally?" Alani interrupted. "Get him to imaging." The resident stood his ground. "Dr. Adebayo, with all due respect, I've already assessed him." She didn't argue. She pushed past him, her hand pressing firmly on the patient's abdomen. It was rigid and swollen, a textbook sign of hemorrhagic shock. "Imaging now," she commanded, "or you can explain to his family why he bled to death in your waiting area." 15 minutes later, the CT scan showed a ruptured spleen. As they prepped for emergency surgery, the resident refused to meet her gaze. But Dr. Sterling was there, his arms crossed, his face a mask of disapproval. "Dr. Adebayo, a word." "Not now," she said. "Not with a man's life draining away. After." "Now," he insisted. She turned to face him, and for the first time in 3 years, she let the captain she used to be show through. "Sir, that man has less than 20 minutes before he dies. You can reprimand me, suspend me, or fire me, but it will happen after I save his life." Something shifted in Sterling's expression, perhaps surprise, or the recognition that she would not be pushed aside. He yielded. 20 minutes, doctor, then my office." The surgery took 40. The patient survived. When she emerged from the OR, Sterling was gone, but a note was taped to her locker. "My office, 0700, be on time." She sat in the empty locker room, the prosthetic chafing against her skin. Her hands trembled, not from surgical fatigue, but from the memories the operation had dredged up. The last time she had fought that desperately, mortar rounds had been landing close enough to rattle the instruments on her tray. A voice from the doorway made her jump. "Dr. Adebayo?" She looked up to see Michael Corrigan, looking remarkably steady for a man who was nearly dead 2 days ago. "I know I shouldn't be down here," he said, "but I had to see you." "Mr. Corrigan, you need to be in your bed." "I know what you did," he said, stepping closer. She saw it in his eyes then, the unmistakable look of a combat veteran. "That technique you used, I've seen it only once before. A field hospital near Raqqa, 2017. Her blood ran cold. "There was a doctor there," Michael continued. "Saved my whole squad after we were hit. She kept working through a mortar attack like it was just another Tuesday. Never learned her name, but I remember her hands. She had a long, thin scar across her left palm." Alani stood, the prosthetic locking into place, her left hand instinctively clenching to hide the very scar he described. "Mr. Corrigan, you need to rest. Post-operative confusion is—" "I'm not confused, ma'am," he said, using the term of respect soldiers reserve for officers. "I just wanted to thank you." He was gone before she could form a reply. Alone in the locker room, she felt the walls she had so carefully constructed begin to fracture. Her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "Alani Adebayo, we need to talk. CDR Jackson Price, SEAL Team 5. She didn't sleep. Commander Price's message felt like a live explosive on her nightstand. She had changed her name, moved halfway across the country, and buried her military record so deep it was practically invisible. But SEALs never abandoned their own. At 6:45 a.m., she stood outside Dr. Sterling's office, bracing for the end of her career. He opened the door before she knocked. "Dr. Adebayo, come in." He gestured to a chair, but she remained standing. "I've reviewed your file," he said, opening a folder thick enough to be a novel. "Top of your class at Howard, residency at Johns Hopkins, then a 3-year gap. You show up here with a prosthetic and a formidable attitude. Where were you for those 3 years?" The lie was well rehearsed. Personal medical leave, recovering from the accident that caused this. He leaned forward. Dr. Adebayo, your techniques are too refined, too specific to combat medicine. You react under pressure like someone who has been to war. I move like someone with a prosthetic leg, Dr. Sterling. No, he said, standing. For the first time, she saw something other than disdain in his eyes. You move like my son did when he got back from Ramadi, like you're waiting for the next blast. The room fell silent. Outside, the hospital hummed with life, but inside her meticulously built civilian world was collapsing. I'm a surgeon, she said softly. That's all that should matter. It would be, he replied, except Michael Corrigan is telling anyone who will listen that you saved him with battlefield medicine. And there is a Navy commander in full dress uniform in our lobby, asking for you. Her heart seized. She left his office and took the stairs, her prosthetic a clumsy, protesting anchor. As she emerged into the main lobby, she saw him instantly. Commander Jackson "Jax" Price, flanked by 3 other SEALs, all in immaculate dress whites. They saw her in the same moment. A wide grin split Price's face. "Captain Adebayo," he boomed, his voice carrying across the cavernous space. "Or is it doctor now?" Every head turned. The entire lobby, doctors, nurses, patients, was staring. She wanted to disappear, but instead she walked toward him, the familiar click of her leg feeling like a spotlight. "Commander Price, this isn't a good time." "On the contrary, ma'am, it's the perfect time." He pulled a folder from his jacket. "We've been searching for you for 3 years, ever since you vanished from Walter Reed." "I didn't vanish. I was honorably discharged." "You disappeared?" he corrected, his voice dropping for her ears only. "After what you did for us, what you sacrificed, you deserved more than to hide in a hospital where people don't understand who you are." "They don't need to know." "Yes," he countered firmly. "They do." He handed her the folder. Inside were photos of a younger version of herself in combat fatigues, her face smudged with dirt and blood. And beneath them, a citation she had never seen for the Navy Cross, recommended for extraordinary heroism. "This was supposed to be yours," Price said, "but you were already gone." The lobby seemed to tilt. "I can't accept this." "You don't have a choice, ma'am. It's been approved. We're here to make it official." He glanced at the growing crowd, then back at her. "And to make sure everyone here knows exactly who they've been working with." She saw Dr. Sterling at the edge of the crowd, his face ashen. Behind him were the residents who had mocked her, the nurses who had doubted her. "Commander, please," she whispered. "Not like this." "Especially like this," he replied, then turned to the onlookers. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Commander Jackson Price of SEAL Team 5. I'm here today to honor the woman you know as Dr. Alani Adebayo," he continued, his voice resonating with authority. In 2017, Captain Alani Adebayo was the chief medical officer at a forward operating base in Syria. On the night of October 22nd, our team was ambushed. We sustained heavy casualties. He paused, his composure cracking for a moment. Captain Adebayo operated on 12 critically wounded SEALs while the base was under direct mortar fire. She refused orders to evacuate, and when a shell struck the medical tent, she shielded one of my men with her own body. A collective gasp rippled through the lobby. "She lost her leg saving Sergeant Leo Vance," Price said, his voice thick with emotion. "She saved all 12 of us that night. Every single one of us is alive today because of her." Finally, she looked up, meeting the stunned, tear-streaked faces of her colleagues. Dr. Sterling looked as if he'd seen a ghost. One of the SEALs with Price stepped forward. Alani recognized him now, Leo Vance. The last time she'd seen him, he was dying on her table. Now he stood before her, alive and whole. "Captain Adebayo," Price said formally, On behalf of the United States Navy, it is my honor to present you with the Navy Cross. Another SEAL presented a polished wooden case. Inside, the metal gleamed. "I can't," she breathed. "I was just doing my job." "Your job was to get out," Leo Vance spoke up, his voice rough. "You stayed. You saved my life when you should have been saving your own. I'm a doctor. That's what we do." "No, ma'am," Price said gently. "That's what heroes do." He lifted the medal from its case. "Captain Alani Adebayo, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of your life above and beyond the call of duty." The formal words washed over her. When Price pinned the medal to her scrubs, the lobby erupted in thunderous applause. Dr. Sterling pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with shame. "Dr. Adebayo, I had no idea." "You weren't meant to," she said. "I said horrible things about your leg, your abilities. You said what you saw, a black surgeon with a limp. You weren't wrong." "I was completely wrong," he insisted, his eyes on the medal. "I am so sorry." Leo Vance stepped forward. "Doctor, may I?" He gestured to her hand. She extended her left palm, revealing the pale, thin scar. "I remember this," he said, his touch gentle. "The shrapnel went through your hand and into your leg. You never even flinched." "I flinched?" she corrected softly. "I just didn't stop." "Why did you vanish?" Price asked. "We wanted to help." She couldn't explain the guilt of surviving, the shame of being broken, the fear of being forever defined by that single night. "I needed to be someone else for a while," she said. Dr. Sterling cleared his throat, addressing the crowd. "Dr. Alani Adebayo is a Navy Cross recipient and one of the finest surgeons I have ever had the privilege to witness. Effective immediately, her surgical privileges are fully restored, and I would like to offer her the position of Chief of Trauma Surgery." The applause started again, but she barely heard it. The position she had dreamed of before Syria was now hers. "Dr. Sterling, I appreciate—" "You've earned it," he said, extending a hand. "Please let me begin to make this right." She shook his hand. Then she turned to Price and his team. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "SEALs never leave anyone behind, ma'am," Price said. "Not even doctors who try to hide from us." As the crowd thinned, Leo lingered. "Dr. Adebayo, I got married last year. We had a daughter 3 months ago. We named her Alani." Her throat closed. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, ma'am, I did," he said, showing her a photo on his phone of a beautiful baby girl. "Because of you, I'm here to be her father. She's going to grow up knowing all about the hero who saved my life." "I'm not a hero, Sergeant." "No, ma'am," he said, his eyes unwavering. "You're a hero who got hurt saving others. There's a difference." He gave her a sharp, formal salute and walked away, leaving her alone in the lobby with the heavy weight of the medal on her chest and a life she had tried to escape demanding to be lived. The rest of the day was a surreal haze of handshakes and apologies from people who had previously ignored her. That evening, Dr. Sterling found her. He handed her a file. "This came an hour ago, a transfer request from Walter Reed. They want you back." It was a formal offer for Chief of Combat Trauma, full rank restoration. "Commander Price's visit made some waves," Sterling said. "I won't lie. Losing you would be a blow to this hospital. But that's where you belong." "I can't go back," she said, the words tasting like fear. "Why not?" "Because every time I close my eyes, I see that tent. Because my leg aches with a pain that reminds me I'm broken. Because I'm not that person anymore." "None of us are the same people we were 3 years ago," Sterling countered. "But you are meant to be more than a surgeon hiding here. You have 72 hours to respond." Later, in the deserted parking garage, a knock on her car window made her jump. It was Leo Vance. "Sorry, ma'am, there's something else you need to know." He leaned against her car. "That night, After the blast, you were unconscious. When the medevac came, the pilot said there was only room for one critical patient. It was you or me. I remember, she said. Standard triage. You wrote more than that on my chest, he said, holding up his phone. It was a grainy photo from that night. On his blood-streaked chest, in her handwriting, were the words, "Take him first. He has a wife." She stared at the image, the memory a ghost she didn't know existed. "You didn't have a wife then?" she whispered. "No. But you remembered me talking about my fiancé. You chose my life over yours because of a conversation?" "The pilot saw what you wrote. He took me. The delay is why they couldn't save your leg." He wiped a tear from his eye. "That's why we looked for you. You gave me my future, and it cost you a part of yourself." She finally found her voice. "I don't regret it." "I know you don't," he said. "That's what makes you who you are, ma'am. Not the medal. The choice." He saluted and walked away, leaving her with the Walter Reed offer and a truth she could no longer outrun. She wasn't broken. She was forged. That night, unable to sleep, she drove back to the hospital and went to the observation deck overlooking the empty OR. "Couldn't sleep either," a voice said. Dr. Sterling, Richard, stood in the doorway. He told her about his son, a Marine, who had come home from Ramadi a different man and had taken his own life 2 years later. "I saw his pain in you," Richard said, his voice hollow with regret. "And instead of helping, I made it worse." He handed her a business card. This was his therapist. "She specializes in combat trauma. I should have given this to him. I'm giving it to you." The next afternoon, she sat in the warm, inviting office of Dr. Maya Joshi. For the first time, she spoke of Syria, the fear, the blood, the impossible choices. "You feel like you lost everything," Dr. Joshi said gently. "Or did you gain the knowledge that when everything was on the line, you chose to save others? You survived the hardest choice a person can make." When Alani left 2 hours later, the weight in her chest was lighter. She had 48 hours to decide about Walter Reed, but for the first time, she knew what the answer would be. 2 weeks later, on her last day, the staff threw her a party. Leo came with his wife and baby Alani. Holding the tiny, perfect child, Alani felt a sense of peace settle over her. Later, changing in the locker room, she got a text from Price. "Car's outside. Ready when you are." Richard walked her out. "Go save some lives, Captain Adebayo." The black SUV waited with Price and her escort team. As they pulled away, she watched the hospital shrink in the rearview mirror. It had been her refuge, her hiding place. Now it was just a chapter in her story. Walter Reed rose before them, a fortress of healing. Captain Elias Thorne, the chief of surgery, was waiting. "Welcome home, Captain. We've been waiting for you." He led her to her new office. On the wall was a photo of her old team in Syria, all of them smiling, whole. "Your first case," Thorne said, handing her a file. "Marine Corporal, IED blast. He's asking for you." In the OR, everything felt right. The team moved around her with seamless efficiency. The young Marine on the table looked at her with desperate hope. "They said you're the best," he whispered. "I'm going to prove them right," she replied. 6 hours later, when the Marine's vitals were stable, she knew she was home. This was her purpose. Not running from the past, but using it to mend the present. Months later, the work was her redemption. The limp was a part of her, a constant reminder not of what she had lost, but of what she had saved. One afternoon, after a complex surgery, Captain Thorne stuck his head into the OR. "Captain Adebayo, we've got incoming. Multiple casualties. They're asking for you." "On my way," she said, her purpose clear, her spirit strong. She headed for the trauma bay, her distinctive gait no longer a sound of weakness, but the rhythm of a hero walking toward the fight, ready to save the next life. She had spent years believing she was broken. Now she knew the truth. The cracks were where the light got in.